Hello everybody, we are back today doing another player profile before the NHL Draft today, discussing one of the most intriguing players in recent memory in regards to the draft being Matvei Michkov. But before we start talking about him, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to my channel. If not, no big deal. Now let's get into it. So, Matvei Michkov is of course the next Ovi, or at least that's what he's been labeled as he has been one of the more enticing prospects to look at the past few years. And last season, where he played in the KHL, he had 30 games played, but the most important part, where he was put on loan to Sochi, which was not a great team in the KHL last year, I don't believe, and he ended up putting up 20 points in 27 games played there before going on to sign a 3-year deal with SKA St. Petersburg through the 25-26 season, but of course, he was put on loan by them, so he already basically is owned by them. So let's talk about the pros of his game, and I think the biggest thing right away when you watch film on him is he is willing or just able to do what others can't. He, of course, scored a Michigan goal last year in the KHL, and he is a guy that really does seem to be able to just do things that a player his age shouldn't be able to do, and also does it kind of at ease. I don't want to say that this is just one of those things where, oh, he is just so much farther ahead compared to other guys, because it's one of those situations where we're wondering how good is the KHL now that a lot of foreign players are gone, but he is a guy that I do think has a skill set most 18-year-olds don't have right off the bat. His ability also to remain poised under pressure, especially when he gets pushed up against the boards, absolutely blows me away. You can see it a lot of times when he has a defender come in on him, or a lot of defensive pressure is really trying to get him pushed up against the board to turn over the puck. He almost just finds a way to get space every time to work around them, get past them, whatever the case is. He does seem to have a skill set right away to be able to get through there and get to a better situation where now you've got defenders that are, getting blown by him, or he's used the ability to get past them to set up teammates. And he does a great job of that there with some really good passes. And the biggest thing too right now is I feel like his pro experience is a big advantage compared to some other guys. Yes, you can say that the CHL is good, blah, 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 but at the end of the day, playing in the KHL, I think is still an advantage compared to some other players where you're playing with guys that are more your age. Michkov is still playing with grown men. And one of the things that I really like to see in his game is the ability to slow things down even at the professional level. He might try to get up ice, and a lot of players would try to rush it, and maybe it leads to a turnover, and I don't think it's a bad idea necessarily to try to get up ice and create those odd man rush opportunities. But if he doesn't like what he sees, he is okay stopping near the blue line, slowing things down, and maybe getting a pass to the center of the ice that wouldn't have been there had he ended up rushing it. So it is one of those things right there where you see, again, that ability to do things other can't, just kind of have the IQ to know what's going to probably happen. Seems to be one of the main things for his talented play and what he could be. Cons. This one is going to be more controversial compared to some other guys because I think it does a lot with off the ice and it actually deals with some negative things. So the first one is effort. I don't want to say that he's a lazy player, but from what I've seen, he's focused more on the offensive end. Doesn't seem like he cares as much about the defensive end unless he thinks it could turn into a goal the other way. He likes to forecheck at times, but he also really does not want to back check. So if he's aggressive and tries to regain possession of the puck and he misses, chances are he's probably going to be a little bit slower to get back on his horse and then try to get back into the defensive end, which means at the NHL level, maybe that could turn into a goal. I hate to say that he's lazy because I don't want to say it's that, but he's probably going to have somebody do a nice talk to him early on at the NHL level and just basically say, hey, I don't mind you being aggressive on the forecheck, but you better get back on the back check because if you're going to do this, we will put you on the bench, which is something that certain coaches probably would just give him 10 minutes and say, there you go, bud. But I'm hoping that that does improve a little bit at the NHL level. The other two things are more problematic because one of them is his personality. I don't know if this is just a character assassination for certain teams trying to get him, but it does seem like multiple people are saying that Michkov does not seem to have the best personality compared to some other guys, where guys like Bedard especially, I think, are a lot more team-friendly. Michkov, I think, has had multiple instances where he's gotten fights with his teammates and things of that nature, and also is just said to have somewhat of a bad attitude. I can't personally claim to that. I can't say, oh, he does have a bad attitude. I've never met him, maybe might not ever meet him, but I do know that there are reports that he's gotten fights with multiple teammates. It does seem like things were patched up, but again, at the NHL level, he is a boy and he's going to be around men, and these are guys that are the top of the NHL world. They aren't going to want to deal with an 18-year-old that's got a bad attitude, so that could be an issue. Second thing is, or I should say the third thing is the whole Russia situation. He is under contract again with St. Petersburg through 2026 or through the 2025-2026 season, so that's a problem. He can't come over unless he, migrated over, and that would be a whole issue in and of itself, kind of like Soviet players when they defected back in the day. So he would basically be a guy that you would have to wait for 3 years, but also you have the whole Ukraine-Russia situation. Would he get drafted? Would he get sent into all that? Probably not, but he might get drafted and be used kind of as a pawn in Putin's game for political power, and just kind of a guy that could be used for political means. I don't exactly know what's going to happen here, because that whole situation is that it's just not even really related to this channel, but the reality is, with this being a hockey channel that is now tied into that is something we have to talk about. The fact that Michkov could not be able to end up coming here early. He could not possibly defect, or the only way he could get over here early would be to defect. Would he get drafted? All those things. So that is another con when it comes to Michkov and getting drafted early in this draft. Teams that want him, this is kind of where it gets interesting too, because I think a lot of teams would have liked to have him a few years ago, especially had he not signed that extension with St. Petersburg. But right now it seems like with the personality and the whole uncertainty regarding how long he'll be out, not a lot of those top teams are willing to A, either wait for him, or B, see what kind of player he becomes. So it looks like, Washington seems to be the team everybody's talking about, just because they have a lot of Russian players and they are looking to get kind of a guy to replace Ovi in the future in terms of selling merchandise. So getting another grade 8 or another Alex Ovechkin kind of could be the route that they go there. I don't know if he'll fall to them, because it kind of seems like people either think that he'll be taken, maybe with pick 5, or he'll drop all the way into the second round. So it kind of remains to be up in the air as to what teams would want him. I've heard people say Philly. If Torts is there, that is not going to work. Now, fortunately, I don't think John Tortorella is going to be there by the time Michkov rolls around, but we will see. And it's kind of one of those situations where teams have to take a gamble to see what they feel comfortable doing. Player comparison. Who is he being compared to right now? Well, a lot of people are comparing him to Nikita Kucherov, another Russian player that seems to be a guy that is a facilitator and can do a lot of things, that is a skilled asset for his team, and really is in a spot to be one of the better or more underrated players in the league. Now, Michkov, I think, has the ability to be more talented than Kucherov, but again, Kucherov is by no means a fourth-line scrub or anything like that, but it is a thing that I've seen a lot of people compare him to. I don't know if it's a whole Russian aspect, but I do think there are some similarities in their game. And if he turns out to be at the very least a Kucherov, this certainly wouldn't be a bad thing for whichever team ended up picking him. Overall, Michkov has a lot of talent. That is something that you can't deny. Watching him play, you can see that he is better suited offensively than a lot of these guys in this draft, and has already got to have some pro experience compared to some other players. So he is got a very bright future ahead of him. The problem is there are just so many questions surrounding him in the future, and who wants to wait 3 years to get him, that we really don't know who's going to take him throughout the draft. I think personally that he will end up being a good player in the NHL. Just the talent alone, I think, is good enough to be there. He might have a bad attitude and he might have to bounce around clubs if that sticks around and becomes a persistent issue. I don't think it's going to be as problematic as some people are making it out to be. The question remains now, where is he going to be taken in the draft? My opinion is this. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, he's going to fall into the second round. That seems to be kind of one of those weird things, but I've also seen people recently say he's getting taken second, which I don't believe either one of those things. My personal opinion is that he'll probably get taken somewhere in the top 10. If he fell out of the top 10, I would be surprised a little bit, but again, with a team like Washington being right there with pick 8, if he's there with the 8th pick, I don't see a world where they end up not taking him. There's some other teams, I think, that are thinking about taking him. Would the Sharks want to take him? Would the Habs want to take him? That remains to be seen, and it's one of those things we really have to watch out for, because he is going to be one of those guys that after Bedard, and until he gets drafted, I'm going to be keeping my eyes out looking to see who gets him. But anyway, what are your thoughts for Matvei Michkov? Where do you think he'll get drafted? When do you think he'll play? All those things. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go love hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.